What if the moment fear enters your mind, the moment anxiety tightens in your chest, or anger begins to rise, you already had the exact word to stop it, not a technique, not an affirmation. A sacred vibration, a sound that Jesus carried in his own mouth, in his own language, in the exact moments when darkness pressed close. That word exists, and it has been waiting for you. The Aramaic is not just a language. It is a sacred vibration. To ensure you capture every nuance of the frequency that Jesus used, I have prepared a visual pronunciation guide that will appear on your screen. Observe the symbols and the phonetics as we hear the sound, so that your intention is in perfect harmony with the word. What you are about to receive is not a historical lesson. It is not theology. It is something far more immediate, far more alive. Today, you will learn two Aramaic words that function like a master switch, one that interrupts the darkness the moment it arrives, and one that anchors you back into the light that was always yours. The first word is Schlama. The second is Nura. And by the time this video ends, you will know exactly when to use each one and how to use them together in a sequence that Jesus himself understood as the path back to divine alignment. Stay until the end, because at the close of this teaching, I will give you the complete transformation protocol, the exact sequence, the exact intention, and the exact words in the ancient frequency that still carries power today. The world Jesus knew, where darkness was never the enemy. Before Jesus ever spoke of peace, he lived inside a tradition that understood something most modern minds have forgotten. Darkness is not the opposite of light. Darkness is the absence of awareness. In the world, Jesus inhabited a world where Aramaic was the language of the streets, of the prayers, of the most intimate conversations with the divine. There was no clean separation between the spiritual and the practical. Every word carried weight. Every sound was understood to carry consequence. When fear arrived, it was not treated as a psychological state to be managed. It was treated as a frequency to be interrupted, and the interruption required precision, not force, not suppression, not denial. Just the right word, spoken with the right interior stance. This is a radically different understanding from what most of us inherited. We were taught that darkness must be fought, that fear must be conquered, that anger must be controlled. But Jesus taught something else entirely. He taught that the darkness retreats when the correct vibration enters the space. The Aramaic language understood this at its very roots. Words were not labels pasted onto reality. They were living instruments, frequencies, that shaped the inner landscape of the person who spoke them. And the first frequency Jesus reached for when his own disciples were paralyzed by fear, when storms pressed in from the outside and within, was not an argument. It was not a command. It was a single word that carried the weight of an entire cosmology. That word was Schlama. And to understand what it truly means, you have to go deeper than any dictionary will take you. In the next chapter, we go directly into the heart of that word. What you are about to discover will permanently change the way you hear that sound. Schlama, the word that stops the darkness before it grows. The ancient Aramaic speakers who first used this word were not describing a quiet room. They were not describing the absence of conflict. They were describing a state of radical wholeness, a condition where every fragment of a person, every fear, every unresolved wound, every fractured relationship with the divine was returned to its original state of completion. Schlama carries within it the root idea of shlemuta, fullness, totality, the condition of nothing missing. When Jesus offered Schlama to his disciples, he was not saying, "Calm down." He was saying, "You are already whole. The storm cannot take from you what you have always been." This is why Schlama functions as an interruption. The moment you speak it, even silently, eben internadi, you are not affirming peace as a wish. You are asserting wholeness as a fact. You are refusing the narrative the darkness is trying to install. Fear, anxiety, and anger all operate through a single mechanism. They tell a story of incompleteness. You are in danger. You are not enough. This situation will not resolve. Schlama interrupts that story at the root. It does not argue with the darkness. It simply recalls what was always true. In Matthew 6-9, Jesus begins the prayer that would define an entire tradition with a word that directly addresses the wholeness of the divine. Abunda kosma harn, The breaths of all existence, Schlama, is the human echo of that same wholeness. The divine is complete. I, who carry that breath inside me, am therefore complete. The darkness has no argument against that declaration. It only has power where the story of incompleteness is believed. But Schlama is only the first movement. Once you interrupt the darkness, something has to fill the space it occupies, and that is where the second word arrives, and why the two words together form something far more powerful than either one alone. The words of Jesus in Aramaic open different pathways back to divine alignment. Each one represents a frequency capable of restoring something fragmented in human consciousness. Understanding these frequencies is the first step, but mastering their vibration in your daily life is where the true miracle happens. Aramaic words carry a sound dimension that is deeply vibrational, and some of these pronunciations may reach your ear slightly differently depending on how they are rendered. To help you embody each frequency with precision, I created a collection of 5 sacred study guides, each one dedicated to a specific Aramaic declaration and its practice. Inside, you will find the correct pronunciation, guided meditations, and daily activation rituals. The link is pinned in the comments. Your deeper transformation begins there. Nura, the lighted, was never absent. In Aramaic, Nura does not simply describe visible luminosity. It describes the quality of clarity that arrives when the internal noise settles. It is the light of recognition, the moment the soul remembers what it already knew, the moment that confusion lifts and what was always present becomes visible again. The Aramaic tradition that shaped Jesus understood light as the natural condition of the aware being. Darkness was understood as a covering, a temporary state of forgetting. Nura was not something to be created or earned. It was something to be returned to. This is a crucial distinction. When we speak Nura, after Schlama, we are not asking for light to arrive from somewhere outside us. We are declaring that the light has always been present, and that we are now choosing to anchor our awareness in it, rather than in the narrative the darkness was building. Think of it this way. Schlama is the hand that stops the incoming current of fear. Nura is the breath that fills the newly opened space with what you actually are. One clears, the other anchors. Together, they complete a circuit that the mind alone cannot achieve. There is something else worth understanding about Nura. In the Aramaic tradition, light and compassion are not separate categories. The clarity that Nura brings is never cold. It is not the harsh light of judgment. It is the warm illumination of recognition, the kind that sees without condemning, that knows without reducing. When Jesus spoke of inner light in the teachings that have survived, he was consistently pointing toward this quality, the capacity to see one's own life, one's own choices, one's own wounds, with the clarity that comes from being anchored in wholeness rather than fractured by fear. And that clarity is available the moment Nura is spoken with genuine interior intention, not as a wish, not as a prayer for rescue, as a return to what was always already true. The pairing, when Schlama and Nura work as one. Every ancient teaching tradition understood that transformation does not happen in single steps. It happens in movement sequences that mirror the natural rhythm of the soul's journey back to itself. Schlama and Nura are precisely that kind of sequence. They are not two separate tools. They are two movements in a single act of return. The first movement, Schlama, addresses the moment of disruption. Anxiety rises. Anger flares. The internal noise of insecurity begins its familiar story. And instead of engaging with the content of that noise, instead of trying to reason with the fear or suppress the anger, you speak the frequency that recalls your wholeness. Something shifts. It may not be dramatic. It rarely is. But something releases a small but unmistakable loosening of the grip. The darkness had been tightening. That loosening is Schlama working. The second movement, Nura, enters precisely there, into that loosening, into the space that has just been cleared, and it anchors something that the darkness was specifically trying to obscure, the recognition that you are a being of light, that the light inside you is not diminished by what just tried to extinguish it, and that you have the capacity, right now, in this moment, to choose clarity over confusion. Together, Schlama and Nura perform what Jesus consistently pointed toward as the fundamental human capacity. the ability to interrupt the automatic response to darkness and consciously return to one's original nature. This is not about controlling your emotions. It is not spiritual bypassing. It is not pretending the darkness never arrived. It is something far more honest, acknowledging the darkness fully, and then refusing to let it define the territory of your interior life. The sequence works precisely because it does not deny experience. Schlama says, I am whole, even in this. Nura says, I am light. Even now, the darkness does not disappear, but it loses its grip, and that loss of grip is the beginning of every real transformation. In the next chapter, I will show you exactly how to activate this sequence in your daily life and what Jesus understood about the timing that makes this practice most powerful. If something in you is shifting as you receive this teaching, trust that movement. It is your original nature recognizing itself. The 5 sacred study guides were designed to walk beside you as that remembrance deepens. Layer, word, frequency. Each guide carries the full context of these sacred declarations. Their sound, their meaning, and their power to dissolve what no longer belongs to you. The link is pinned in the comments. Your return to wholeness has a next step. The moment of practice, when to speak, when to listen. There is a teaching hidden in the way Jesus used language that most commentators have missed entirely. He rarely spoke sacred words as explanations. He spoke them as events. When he said Schlama to the disciples on the boat, he did not follow it with a lecture on the theology of peace. The word itself was the action. The word itself was the transformation. This matters practically, because the most common mistake people make when they encounter a powerful spiritual word for the first time is to treat it as a concept to be understood rather than a frequency to be inhabited. Schlama and Nura are not affirmations to be recited on a good day when you already feel calm. They are precisely designed for the moments when calm feels impossible, when the fear is real, when the anger is burning, when the insecurity is louder than any rational counterargument could reach. Those are the exact moments when the ancient Aramaic understanding of sacred sound becomes most relevant. Because the Aramaic tradition did not view spiritual practice as something that happens in ideal conditions, it viewed it as the very tool by which impossible conditions become navigable. The timing is also significant. The sequence of Schlama followed by Nura is most powerful in the first moment of disturbance, before the narrative of the darkness has had time to build its structure inside your mind. The longer you wait, the more real estate fear or anger. The sequence works to prevent that occupation, not by force, but by immediate return to what is true. This is why Jesus spoke immediately. He did not wait to assess the severity of the storm. He did not calculate whether the situation warranted intervention. He spoke the frequency first, and the situation reorganized itself around that frequency. You have the same capacity, not because you are a teacher or a mystic or someone with a particular spiritual pedigree, but because you carry the same interior light that Jesus was always pointing toward, the one that the darkness, no matter how convincing its stories, has never once been able to extinguish. Schlama. For the original Aramaic speakers who shaped the world Jesus walked through, this word carried something no single English translation can hold. It was not simply peace as the absence of conflict. It was the declaration that nothing essential was missing, that in the very center of the disturbance, the wholeness of your being remained untouched. You Schlama, the moment disruption arrives, not after you have assessed it, not after you have decided how serious it is. The moment fear enters, the moment anger rises, the moment anxiety begins to build its architecture in your chest. Speak this word internally, with the full weight of its meaning behind it. The intention is not to erase what you are feeling. The intention is to recall what the feeling cannot erase. Your original wholeness. The effect, when practiced with consistency, is the immediate loosening of the darkness's grip, a small but unmistakable pause between the stimulus and the story the darkness wants to tell about it. Word 2, the word of return. Now observe the second word on your screen. Nura light, but not the cold light of analysis or judgment. The warm, clarifying illumination of recognition. The light that arrives when you stop fighting the darkness and simply recall that you were never only darkness. Use Nura immediately after SHLAMA as the second breath in the same sequence. If Schlama is the hand that stops the current of fear, Nura is the breath that fills the newly opened space with what you actually are. Speak it with the interior posture of someone who is not asking for light to arrive, but recognizing that it never left. The effect is an anchoring, a settling into the center of yourself that the noise of the world cannot easily displace. The clarity that Jesus consistently pointed toward as the natural condition of the awakened being. Complete sequence, SH, Eleama, a full breath of pause. Nura, the declaration, I am whole and I am light, even now, even here, even in this. Speak this sequence 3 times. Once for the mind, once for the body, once for the part of you that forgot. Practice it at the threshold of any darkness, in the first breath of anxiety, in the first heat of anger, in the first whisper of insecurity. Morning and evening, as a remembrance, and in every moment when the darkness presses close and tries to convince you that it is winning. It never is. Schlama Nura. The light always was. If these words touched something real in you today, if something shifted, come to the comments right now and leave the word transformation. That single word tells me the frequency landed, and it opens the door for what comes next. Did you feel something shift today? Did these words touch something deeper in you? When the light moves, it needs a path. Discover our complete collection of 5 sacred study guides created to carry your transformation beyond this moment, with correct pronunciation, guided meditations, and daily activation rituals for each Aramaic word. The link is pinned in the comments. Your next step is waiting. We are just beginning to uncover this ancient power. In our next video, I will reveal even deeper Aramaic codes that unlock a spiritual authority you have never imagined. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on so you do not miss what is coming right now. Before you close this video, subscribe to this channel. Every week, we go deeper into the ancient frequency codes that were always meant to be yours.